Hey everybody, Andy Hamilton of Track Wrestling, joined today by Air Force coach Sam Barber. Thanks for joining me, Sam.
Hey, really appreciate you, Andy, having me on, and appreciate everything you do for the sport of wrestling and track. Really appreciate track wrestling.
Well, I said before we hopped on here, I was going to throw you a curveball right out of the gate. I don't know that you were ready for this one, but tell me, how does a guy from New York wind up in Fayette, Iowa? How did you land at Upper Iowa? What's the story there?
Yeah, I think so. I ended up in Fayette, Iowa. It's a little bit simpler explanation than probably most people think. But my high school wrestling coach actually was a grad um, of of Upper Iowa, so that was kind of the connection. And if you go back to the '70s, there was a pretty strong connection of New York guys going to Upper Iowa. And one of them, probably the most notorious or famous anyway you want to look at, is Coach Gary Weber out of Clear Lake, Iowa. So, but he's from Newfane, New York, which is Western New York, same place I'm from. But I think Gary Weber got there first, if I'm not mistaken. And then behind him came Joe Smith, who was a two-time All-American for Upper Iowa. And then he came back after coaching at Martinsdale St. Mary's, actually, in the Des Moines area for a while. Pretty good program. And spent some time coaching there. And then he came back to my high school, or his hometown. And I met him as a freshman in high school. And from there, just a huge influence in my life, Coach Joe Smith, and provided an opportunity for me to go out to Fayette, Iowa. And then we actually ended up bringing in, I think, another 6 guys after me from Western New York to Fayette after I got there. One of my classmates came with me, Ricky Lavelle, and then we had another, I think, 3 guys from my small hometown, one stoplight hometown, 1,500 people roughly. But we had 3 guys come from that high school, and then another couple guys from a high school up the road, Pioneer High School, and Chris Raber, who was actually an All-American for Upper Iowa as well.
Did you have a chance to get out and visit before you set foot on campus, or were you going kind of sight unseen, word of mouth by what other people told you?
Yeah, I don't know if it was I don't know if it was legal back then by NCAA rules, but actually, my high school wrestling coach let me what the heck was it? It was a 19, I think it was pretty much a brand new Trans Am. It's incredible. He let me a brand new Trans Am, and he let me and my buddy, my classmate Rick Lavelle, drive it across country. Our first time ever taking a road trip outside the county, basically, to Fayette, Iowa. And we came out there and we wrestled in a freestyle tournament, and we beat a couple Iowa State champions. And I think that was a good thing because they continued to recruit us then, and that's kind of how we ended up, getting there. So we got there, and Coach Dean Miller was driving us around town, and we were from New York, and everybody we drove by, Coach would, he would wave to, and I was like, dang, Coach, you know a lot of people. And he's like, I don't know those people. And I'm like, well, you're out of your mind when you're waving to strangers, because in New York, you get a baseball bat in the windshield. So it was definitely a little bit different, coming from Western New York. We were small town kids, but nonetheless, you just didn't go around waving to strangers in New York. And everybody in Northeast Iowa, gives you the old steering wheel 2 fingers as you're going by. So it was a pretty cool experience, actually.
Did you know then you wanted to get into coaching?
I didn't have any idea, and again, I was just, again, a small town kid, blue collar family. And I was just trying to do whatever I could to maybe create a better life for myself and my family. So at that time, the common thought was, well, if you want to have a better life for your family, you went out and you got a college education. So I was a first generation high school graduate. I was the first person in my family to graduate high school, let alone go on to college. So that opportunity, it changed my whole world. It changed the trajectory for a lot of people in my family after me too. So I wasn't quite sheltered from the world. My dad's a long haul truck driver still to this day. He's driving back and forth cross country. And as a kid, I would go with him in the truck, and we would drive back and forth cross country. So I'd seen a lot of the United States and been exposed to some of that stuff. But, pretty, geographically had seen a lot. But as far as like knowing what was out there in the world, I didn't even really know that was a job title, coach. I just thought, I was exposed to the things that I was exposed to in my small town. And about the best job you can get in town, in my opinion, was being a teacher. So that was the goal.
So walk me through your coaching career then. How did you wind up at Air Force?
Well, start at the beginning or work backwards. But
Yeah, go either way. I mean,
Well,
yeah, you
so I
start
ended
a little bit.
up getting into coaching because the assistant coach at the time at Upper Iowa took a head coaching job in California, and Coach McCready offered me a job for a year to be the assistant coach. And then, I ended up staying at Upper Iowa for 5 years. Unfortunately, at that time in 1999, Coach had a heart attack and passed away. So I took over as interim coach at Upper Iowa at that time. And then from there, I had promised him I would get my master's degree before he passed, and I just didn't feel like I was strong enough student or had enough discipline to do that and coach at the same time. So, Jim Makovsky extended an opportunity for me to get my grad degree. So I went up as a grad assistant at Minnesota State Mankato, became great friends, to this day, great friends with Coach Makovsky, but also one of my closest friends now, currently, a person you know well, Travis Shives was also the assistant and grad assistant at that time. So we coached together there at Mankato. And then from there, had a job opportunity at Augsburg College, was able to spend 9 years there, left Augsburg College, went out to USA Wrestling, was working as the director of coaches education, knew Joel Sherrod at the time from our connection in the Midwest of Iowa and Minnesota. Started coming up, helping out at the prep school. Their longtime volunteer assistant coach, another great name in wrestling, Mike MacArthur, had been the volunteer at Air Force Wrestling forever. It just had worked out that for him, there's no longer be an opportunity for him to be the volunteer. He was too busy doing some other stuff that he was doing, other good work. So I became the volunteer, and from there they shifted some of the jobs from government to civilian. So second assistant job came up at Air Force. Coach Sherrod extended that opportunity for me. And then second assistant coach until where Joel took advantage of the opportunity to go be the head coach at the Naval Academy, and just really, really fortunate, to be able to be the head coach of the Air Force.
And visiting with you out there last summer, one of the big things that you stressed is just such a big part of your job is producing leaders. And that, that goes for wrestling programs across the country too, but especially in your role at the Air Force Academy. Who did you look to, for leadership lessons to, where did you learn how to become a leader? Who are some of the places you learned? Who are some of the people you learned from?
I think there's a maximum out there. Is like, it's a lot of it's about, being at the right place at the right time. And it's just like, I just really was like unbelievably fortunate, blessed to just be at the right place at the right time. Like I didn't really know who Mike McCready was before I came to Upper Iowa. The assistant coach who primarily recruited me at that time, I didn't have an understanding like who he was as a coach really. I'd read his resume, but I really didn't know who he was as a man until I got to Upper Iowa. So that was the first step in like having amazing good fortune, is that you land at this place and you got a good coach because he has a great resume. But Mike McCready is probably one of the people of highest integrity character I've ever met in my life. So, from there, obviously I spent 10 years with Mike. So that part of it, like as an athlete and then working with him and seeing how, like I got to be coached by him and be an athlete, but then I also got to coach with him. And, he spent a lot of time mentoring me and like, this is what a good coach does. This is what it looks like to be a person of character and integrity in a lot of different places. And then he just, every single day he showed up, and he was one of those people, I think, I got to have Jiminy Cricket. I got to have somebody on my shoulder like, hey, there's the right thing and the wrong thing. And I got to have a conversation, and hopefully I get persuaded to do the right thing, after I kind of work that out in my mind. But Mike just did the right thing. So for that, and then as the summer of my sophomore year at Upper Iowa, Jay Robinson intensive camps were hosted there. So I begged, pleaded, finally broke Jay and convinced him to give me a job, to travel around with Jay Robinson intensive camps for the rest of the summer. So I'd work the 10 days, and every single night I was knocking on his door, making excuses to have to talk to him. And the conversation always ended like, hey, like I'll like do whatever it takes. I'll work for free. I'll pay you if you take me, to Edinburgh for the 14-day camp. So just begged him. And finally he relented, and he took me to Edinburgh. And I begged him like to take me to Minneapolis, and he took me to the 28-day camp, and then I begged him to take me to California at the time for the 14-day camp there. So I spent 10 weeks working for Jay, and then that 10 weeks, to summarize the story, like I ended up working Jay Robinson intensive camps, 10 weeks per summer for 19 years. So from there, I got exposed to Jay Robinson and all the great people that he brought with him, and Mark Schwab and Joe Russell and Marty Morgan. The athletes, I became close friends with the athletes. Some of the athletes on their team were the guys that were in my weddings, Joe Block, who's the head coach of Prior Lake, a friend of mine, Ryan Lurie, who was a great wrestler at the University of Chicago. So my best friends to this day, Jesse Krebs, Joe Block, came from Jay Robinson intensive camps. Joe Russell, Mark Schwab were both guys that, were really dear friends to me. And out of that, I met some of the wrestlers. I met Chad Kraft. Chad Kraft had I'm married to Chad's sister now. So wrestling is literally giving me everything in my life.
Why was that so important for you to go work at Jay's camp?
I think at that time it just, number one, I was still competing, right? So at that time I was still wrestling. And if you wanted to be good, you just surrounded yourself with good people. And at that time, Minnesota was just making its climb. So there just was, there's few better places you could have been than with the University of Minnesota at that time if you wanted to be a good wrestler. And then once you get there, you start to understand again, like, hey, there's a lot more going on here than just wrestling. And the sort of things that, instilled to me by Jay, like sharing his personal philosophy with me, understand the camp's philosophy of learning how to set goals and achieve goals and what it looks like to pursue excellence. That's probably the first place that I was at where, I got exposed to like, well, this is what excellence looks like. With Sir Jay and the people. If you look at the people that were at those camps and what they've gone and done since then and what they were doing then. And again, I was there, with those guys working those camps and just got exposed to seeing what they were doing as they built their championship season where they ended up winning 3 national titles in a row. And to be, kind of have a front row seat to see what they were doing and be involved with that and be around those people, just really fortunate.
So obviously strange times we're in right now. What is Air Force Wrestling doing during the COVID-19 pandemic?
I think we're doing as much as anybody can do. And I think we were really an early adapter. I think what we're doing now isn't that much unique. I think people have caught on, but we have a weekly battle rhythm where we use Zoom. We record weekly announcements, and then with that, me and Coach Johnson to get together out either on my back deck or in his basement, and we record a little technique just for the guys to look at. We can't have anything mandatory for them right now due to NCAAs, but we can give them a technique that they can look at, and if they got access to a wrestling mat or training partners, they can use it. So we send that out. We have a staff meeting every Wednesday, either virtually over Zoom. We just finished it actually today. We did it in person at my house, all 6 feet apart, following all the protocol. But and then and then every Thursday we have a team meeting over Zoom where we get the entire team together, and we meet, have announcements, have discussions. We've hired Heath Esslinger, former coach of Chattanooga. He's doing a great job. He's putting our team through his curriculum and what he's doing, and it's just phenomenal. So not only are we meeting, but we're meeting with a purpose, and we're gaining some knowledge, and we're finding ways where we can get better in this. We have a calendar that we were working off from. We had things that we were going to get done during this time. We've stayed very disciplined in getting those things done. We've had individual meetings through Zoom. So we met with every guy on the team and went back and evaluated the season. As a staff, we spent 6 to 8 hours evaluating the entire year. We're moving forward with our postseason awards. That's coming up soon. And we're right in the middle right now of doing our thank-a-thon, where we have the guys assigned to different supporters of our program, calling them, thanking them. So we're really trying to maintain a sense of normalcy and doing all the things that we would have normally done. And we'll just do them and they look a little bit different since the fact are not together. And then finally, we kind of have this mantra of like being intentional, staying positive, being productive. And like that's That's the conversation we have every week. And lastly, we go through and we call the guys each week. We have face-to-face with the guys each week, so individual athlete in our team's getting a touch and recruiting, recruiting like crazy, doing what everybody else is recruiting, and using all the tools available to us there to be as effective and efficient as we can to stay in front of guys and, share all the great things we have to offer here at the United States Air Force Academy.
As you take inventory of this past season and what transpired, what are some of the main takeaways for you?
I think some of the main takeaways for us is obviously we fell short of our goals, and I think that part's a little bit disappointing to us. We had a pretty fast start. We got out, we had some good wins, and we had as many as 6 guys ranked at one point in the time. And I think going into the season, my expectations were like, well, it's going to be a little bit of a rebuilding year. We're going to be young, and then we got off, like I said, to a pretty fast start, and then we shifted like, man, we're gonna do well. We're gonna take a few guys in NCAAs and and have some success. And it didn't come to that fruition, so it didn't happen that way. But I look back at our team, I look back at the matches we won, and then I look back at the results. We had 4 medalists in the Big 12 championships. We were second in the All Academy championships by 1 point, and we had as many national ranked wins this year as we've had, I think, in recent years. So as I look back on it, with a little bit of perspective now, a little bit more time in the current situation, there's a lot of excitement about where we're going to go. Number one, because I think we got the right athletes from a talent perspective, but more importantly, we got the right athletes from a buy-in perspective and a mentality perspective. So there's a lot to be excited about right now. For me, is the leader of Air Force Wrestling because of the athletes we have in the program, both talent-wise and their mindset, and because of the staff and support system we built around them.
Last year, you brought in Joe Johnston as an assistant coach. You have Chris Heilman, Dustin Kilgore on your staff there as well. Periodically, you got some people coming up from USA Wrestling, Kevin Jackson, Jaden Cox, the EAP athletes, and Chandler Rogers training there as well. Tell us a little bit about the dynamic in your room and what some of those guys bring to the table.
I think that, the number one dynamic in that room is that everybody sees the value that our cadet athletes bring to the table, right? Everybody there understands that, like, these guys are at the United States Air Force Academy because they choose something bigger than themselves. So when you bring guys in the room, and it's crazy that people that we're able to bring in our room because of the RTC, but they're so, like, if you get to spend time around our athletes, they're starving for excellence. They want to be excellent, and they want to win. They want to, and they want to be excellent in everything they do. So when Kevin Jackson comes to the room, it's pretty easy for him to pour into our guys, right? He sees that they're moldable, right? That they want to learn, that they don't. When you go over and give a guy some help with a technique, that you're not going to get body language, or that, hey, like, nah, coach, I got this figured out. I like to do it my way. So I think that's the number one thing. And the other thing is with that, so like you have this group of athletes that just really want to be poured into, and they're really excited about it. And then you got a group of people, highly successful people that I haven't seen any egos out of that group, right? So number one, I believe in bringing in other people. Like, I'm not protective of our room, and I'm sure that what Kevin Jackson's going to tell him, he may say it a different way, but he's going to reinforce what we're trying to do. But we're all the people there are there for the right reasons, because they want to help cadet athletes be successful in everything they do, mainly wrestling. But I think that's the biggest takeaway, is that, like, you just don't see there's not any egos. There's not anybody that's trying to outshine anybody, or they're not there for any other selfish reasons. They're there because they want to help people that signed up to be part of something bigger than themselves. So when you got Kevin Jackson and Joe Johnston and Dwayne Goldman and Chandler Rogers and Chris Heilman and Dustin Kilgore all in a practice room, I've been in those rooms before when it doesn't work well, because everybody's threatened by everybody. Everybody, has to have the better idea or the better technique or the better adjustment or the better way of saying it. And it's really incredible to me that you can get that group of people together in the same room and watch them pour into athletes because of the pureness of, like, that's what we're supposed to do as coaches.
What did you learn in this past year about Joe Johnston that you didn't already know about him?
Well, I knew his his competition credentials speak pretty well for him. And if you were looking at Missouri and you see where they had success, You could kind of see where it pointed to, I think, Joe's influence in the room from the outside. But, and again, like I've told you, some of the guys that I've got to be around in the sport of wrestling, just by chance, just fortunate. But Joe Johnson may be one of the best teachers of wrestling I've ever been around in my life, and I think that says a lot because I've been around, pretty much everybody in the sport, in some way, shape, or form, right? I spend a lot of time at the Olympic Training Center when we have training camps in there, when the world team's there, when there's foreign teams there. And Joe Johnston, when it comes to teaching wrestling, and not necessarily what he shows, but how he shows it and how he can explain it, there's few people that I've seen that are better. So that part of it, and again, he's one of those people like Mike McCready where Joe Johnston just does the right thing. Like his mind's just wired, like his reaction is going to be right. It's going to be pure, and it's going to come from the heart every time.
8 seniors on your team this year. You guys went 8 for 8 with pilot slots. Explain that and its significance, Sam.
The significance of that is like it's highly competitive, to be a pilot at the United States Air Force Academy. I think some people have the perception of like that's all we do here, and that's not the case. If you come here, you have to compete with 1,000 other cadets in your class to become a pilot. Now we have a lot of pilots right now. There's a massive pilot shortage in the United States. So if you do want to fly, there's no better place to come than the United States Air Force Academy because we need pilots. If you come here and you do the things right, you're going to be a pilot. But that being said, it's still highly competitive. They're going to look at your grade point average. They're going to look at your leadership ability. They're going to look at your athletic performance because you're going to get graded on all those things. We measure everything here at the Air Force Academy. Everything we do is measured. Everything we do, we compete. All right, we're competitors. It doesn't matter if it's academics, if it's leadership, or if it's athletics. We're going to compete and we're going to measure you, and you're going to stack up against your classmates. So to have 8 of those guys be able to be above that waterline, and not a single one of them was even close. I mean, those guys, those 8 seniors, I think 7 of the 8 of them had graduated with cumulative GPAs of over a 3.0, which is incredible at the United States Air Force Academy. So highly competitive to do it. And then the other part is like we talk about in our program about choosing the path less traveled or taking the harder road, do hard things. That's one of our core mantras at the wrestling program at the Air Force Academy is do hard things. Is that you can come to the Air Force Academy, you can get a world-class education, 100% of it's paid for. It's a $492,000 full-ride scholarship and a guaranteed job when you graduate. And you could choose a guaranteed job for a 5-year opportunity in the Air Force, or you could choose a job where we're going to have to spend additional money to train you to do the job. And if you do that, it's going to be 10 years in the Air Force, right? So unrated career, 5 years in the Air Force. A little bit of on-the-job training, guaranteed job. You're in for 5 and you're out if you want to be done, all right? And then there's rated where we're going to pay, it's $2.5 million investment to teach you how to fly a plane and go out and execute the mission for the Air Force. And if you do that, then your clock's going to start after pilot training, and you're going to make a 10-year commitment to serving your country and being in the Air Force. So every one of those pilots chose something bigger than themselves and chose a path less traveled and choosing a 10-year commitment to serving their country and being a part of something bigger than themselves and making an impact on the world to flying for the United States Air Force for the United States Air Force. So
What's
that's
your relationship. What's your relationship like with the wrestling programs at the other service academies?
Well, I think, for me, number one, I have I'm a one team, one fight. When it comes to the armed services in the United States of America, one team, one fight. It doesn't matter if it's the Marine Corps, the Coast Guard, Army, Navy, Air Force. Like we're one team, one fight. We're fighting to protect our values of the United States and the Constitution, right? So I'm 100% bought in with our armed forces, and I bleed red, white, and blue. All right, not just Air Force blue, but red, white, and blue. The United States of America. That's why I choose to coach at the Air Force Academy. So I'm 100%. I love the other athletes and coaches at the other service academies. So I'm, obviously when we compete against them, it's going to be we're going to compete hard, and there's a little bit more in the game because there's some inter-service rivalries in that. But there's no bigger fan of service academies and service academy wrestling programs than me. And I think. And I recognize greatness and the good job that Kevin Ward's doing at Army. Joel Sherritt is probably one of the best coaches in the history of service academies. If you look back at his record and what he did in 20 years of coaching service academies, there's been one All-American in service academies in the last 10 years, and Joel Sherritt coached that guy. So he's just been part of greatness in service academy coaching for a long time. And when it comes to building leaders of character that are going to go out and serve their country, few guys are better than Joel Sherritt were. And I can tell you a lot of people he's connected to that have done huge things for our country beyond the wrestling mat. And then Kerry Kowat's going to do a good job there as well. He's a great, he's a person of high character and integrity. He works hard. He loves wrestling. So, I think that part of it, if you look at service academies right now, and you're a wrestler, and if you're a Division I wrestler right now and you're one of the best recruits in the country, and you don't look at service academies, you don't consider Army, Air Force, and Navy, then you're missing an incredible opportunity.
Yeah, can you expand on that a little bit? On what's your pitch to top recruits across the country? Well,
I think obviously I hope they choose Air Force, right? Let's be clear about that. So I hope they choose Air Force. I don't want to make this, I don't want to make Kerry and Coach Ward's job too easy, but I just think if you think about the opportunities that we provide, as far as there's nobody that can match our offer. It's 100% full ride scholarship with a paycheck and a guaranteed job when you graduate, right? So I think if you look at the economic situation we're in right now, like our guys that just graduated college, they're not wondering where they're going to go, where they're going to work. They know exactly what they're going to do, and they know what their financial future is going to look like for the next 10 years of their life. And I think nobody else out there can offer that in the country. With that, they can't offer it at the pay rate that we offer it as well either. So I think where it puts you debt-free with a job. And I think what people don't remember is this: we easily forget when we were young men and we dreamed about being the hero of the story, the guy that made the difference, the guy that kicked down the door and ran into the burning building that saved the damsel in distress in the castle, right? Like the guy that, like, every one of us, I think that's, I would say strong-willed, young men dreamed of being, making a difference in the world. And we offer that. If you come to the United States Air Force Academy, the day you graduate, you're going to be making a difference in the world. You're going to impact the world that we live in and protecting our American freedoms, or serving people less fortunate than us, or making a difference by flying your F-16 over New York City in honor of, the frontline medical fighters that are doing everything they can to support us during COVID-19. All right. That's the opportunity you have to become here. I think obviously, there's a lot of different pathways to success, and there's a lot of different ways you can make a difference in the world, but every pathway that we have is going to lead you to, the American dream, 2.5 kids, white picket, the 2-car garage. Like if you come to a service academy, United States Service Academy, you're going to be able to afford the American dream. You're going to be in that position, and you're guaranteed an opportunity to make a difference in the world we live in today. So I think that part of it, it's incredible. And I think if we really think back to like who we say we wanted to be when we were young men, and maybe even why we got into wrestling or coaching. For me, I got into coaching because I wanted to make a difference in the world, and I took a different pathway, and it worked out for me. You come here, it's guaranteed that you're going to be part of something bigger than yourself.
You mentioned the Blue Angels and Thunderbirds tour in U.S. major cities right now in support of the frontline medical professionals. How does that tie in with Air Force Wrestling? What's the significance of that for Air Force Wrestling?
Well, we got alumni out there right now that are doing, we don't have any current alumni flying Thunderbirds, but we have, I think in my 12 years here now, we have over 40 pilots. So we have people out flying in support, doing the job, right? I think that part, how's it tie in? Is it like the rest of the world is going through a pandemic, but our national defense still has to be upheld. And it's still it has to be our number one priority, right? Our national defense has to be our number one priority as we work through this pandemic. And the guys that came to the United States Air Force Academy are the guys that are standing on the wall, protecting our freedoms, and moving things around and providing supplies, whatever we need to ensure that we can still have our way of life when this thing ends. So that's the connection, is that we have hundreds and hundreds of alumni from the Air Force Academy wrestling program that are making a difference in the world and protecting us as we work through this difficult time, those guys are still on the clock. Those guys are still doing the job. Those guys are going to be there now, and they're going to be there for when this thing ends. So to ensure that as a country that we can continue to live the way that we want to live with our American values.
Hey, great stuff, Sam. Anything else for us?
I think the other, going back a little bit about, the one piece I didn't talk about obviously is bigger, but if you look at the success that athletes and service academies had, the Air Force Academy, the coaching staffs that we have, and the opportunities we provide being part of the Big 12, the OTC, is that if you're the number one recruit in the country, that we have all the tools you need to be successful here as well as a wrestler, and you can win. You can win here. You compete in the Big 12 conference. You get to compete in one of the premier conferences in the country against, storied programs like Oklahoma State, Iowa State, Oklahoma, right? You get to compete against All-Americans and national champions every week in, week out, in front of great crowds that are educated on the sport of wrestling. And you get to be around excellence at the Olympic Training Center. If you come to the United States Air Force Academy, you can become an All-American, a national champion. In 2002, Kevin Hoy was in the national finals. We've done it here. All right, we've competed at the highest level. We had 3 All-Americans. That was 2003, I'm sorry. But in 2002, we had 3 All-Americans. So we can offer you an opportunity to be stand on the top of the podium, and that's not easy to do today. The landscape's changed with RTCs. But when it comes to that, our RTC is as good or as better as anybody, with opportunities to be around great coaches and work with great athletes, just because of the geographical location of, the United States Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs. So world-class education, guaranteed job, be part of something bigger than yourselves, and get your hand raised an awful lot, in some pretty important matches.
Hey, thanks so much for the time, Sam. Greatly appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Andy. Really appreciate you.